Hi there, and welcome to Laser Classroom, Bringing STEM to Light. This is Module 4, Presentation number 2, Light and Shadows. Here we're going to take a look at shadows, and we're going to look at the basics of what shadows are, and we're also going to take a look at some ways that we can extend and elaborate on some very basic understandings of the way that shadows are made and the way that shadows can give us information about the relative position of different things. And we're going to use that to take a look at earth science and the way that the sun is related to both the earth and the moon and the seasons and astronomy. So shadows are formed when an object blocks light. So the light is either bouncing off the object or it is absorbed by the object. But either way, the light cannot get through and a dark spot is formed where the light doesn't pass through. A couple of other details about shadows. Shadows form because light travels in a straight line. So we're building on that understanding that light travels in a straight line. If light could bend around things, now it turns out light actually does bend around things, but it only bends around very, very small things, very, very small amounts. So it doesn't bend enough to get rid of the effect of being blocked when something is in its path. It creates a shadow. Shadows get bigger when the light source moves away from the object, and shadows get smaller when the object and the light source are closer together. And shadows disappear completely when the light source is directly overhead. And we'll also see that the way to make a shadow move to the right is to hold the light source to the left of your object, and the way to make a shadow extend over to the left is to hold your light source over to the right of the object. So now we'll take a minute to actually take a look at a demonstration of shadows.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is shadows. Very young kids often think of shadows as an actual object. So we're going to help them see that a shadow is a relationship between light and an object that is blocking the light. So for our object that's blocking the light, you're going to use either a pen or a pencil and the little mirror clip that came with your kit. And we're going to clip a pen or a pencil into the clip like this, and then stand it up on a flat surface, preferably with some sort of a screen or a wall where you can observe the shadows. And then we're going to start with just one. I'm going to start with the red one, and we're going to turn it on without the slit cap on. And we're going to start looking at the orientation of the shadows. And here in your booklet, there is an activity sheet, number 5, entitled Shadows, that leads the kids through several different exercises and will help them see how the light related to the object can change the shape and the size and the orientation of the shadow. So we're going to say, how do we make the shadow bigger? By moving the light closer. And we can make the shadow smaller by moving the light further away from the object. And how do we make the shadow move to the left? By rotating the light around to the right side. And how do you make the shadow disappear? If you hold the light directly overhead, the shadow disappears. And now, let's look at how we can make shadows that are not only dark, but a color. Because a shadow is just a place where light is blocked. And sometimes part of the light is blocked and another part of the light is not. So I'm going to introduce a green light, and you can see that right here all the light is blocked, so you see a dark shadow. But over here only the red light is blocked, so you have a green shadow. And behind the shadow you have a mix of red and green. And now from another angle I'm going to introduce a blue light, and now you have a dark shadow and a blue shadow. Now let's change the angle a little bit and see what happens. I'm going to move our lights in. Look at that. Now we've got no dark shadow. We've got a pink shadow, a cyan shadow, and a yellow shadow. So for the pink, the green is completely blocked out, so what you have is a mix of blue and red. For the cyan, the red is completely blocked out, and you have a mixture of blue and green to make cyan. And finally, you have a yellow shadow where the pen is blocking the blue, and you just have red and green to make yellow.
So that's the basics of shadows. And just exploring shadows kind of up close like this is a great way to get kids engaged in the idea that light is related to objects in a way that casts shadows. And why anybody would care about that, one of the first things that comes to mind is earth science. And we've got a couple of activities listed here for you to take a look at. One of them is shadow tracing. Kids go outside and trace their own shadows and watch how they move throughout the course of a day. Another one is modeling shadows, where kids actually build a 3D model of either their schoolyard or their block or some outside area, and they build this model and watch how the shadows move on the model and how they move in reality, and learn a lot about how the sun moves that way. And then there's another activity that is all about shadows and astronomy. And really, by looking at shadows, you can start to figure out the size of the sun. You can learn a lot about seasons. And by looking at the relative position of the sun to the shadows, you can figure out what time of day it is. So take a look at those activities and enjoy teaching about shadows.